Welcome back to 1010's podcast with Michael, Adam, and Robbie. And on the phone this week, we have James from Kanga Motorsports. He is back again.
Good to be back.
He's going to talk about some very exciting things in this episode.
This is the most reoccurring guest we've ever had.
It's the third time, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, it is.
Third time's the charm.
So earlier in the spring, we talked about you. We were talking about your season and how, like, you know, your race season was starting, and we were talking about having you on to talk a little bit about kind of grassroots motorsports sponsorship. And then I realized that we never did that, so that's what we're doing today. That's
Great.
my
Look forward to
teaser.
it.
That's my teaser. My professional podcasting.
That's right.
Lead into
Through
what's
the infographic.
that what's going to happen. Oh, you know what my other teaser is? I was looking through the news today. There is not one article in there about autonomous vehicles or electric cars. Since apparently people were complaining about that.
Oh, did someone complain about that?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't see that.
I complained about it.
you may have complained about it, but somebody else did as well.
Oh, okay.
So people can be excited about that. That's coming up later.
You're still going to make fun of rotaries, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, given the opportunity, I'll
That
find a
just
spot to slip
happens,
that in
you
there.
know,
That's-
instinctually.
Yeah, that's natural. We just let it happen.
So Adam wasn't going to share this, but I'm going to share it because it's funny to
Oh, God.
throw Adam under the bus. So
Oh, fuck.
apparently the government or Facebook,
God damn
which
it.
may be one and the same, who knows?
damn it, you're
they're
a
listening.
dick.
They're listening to the show, and Adam's been getting weird targeted advertisement for the weird things that we
I
talk
get
about on the show.
notifications of pages near me.
So when we talked about the cryogenic chambers,
Yep.
when you went to the
Cryotherapy.
one place
Uh-huh.
and did the service call,
Yep.
and then we talked about that a little bit
Previous
on the
job.
random. That wasn't that your Adam opens all the way up
Yeah,
or
I did
whatever
like
it was.
4 openers or something.
Yep. So on that one, then you got a targeted advertisement for the place in Ames, right?
Yep. I got to, like, open my phone up. Says you got that little red 1 next to my Facebook icon. Click on it. Hit the notification button. You may be interested in this page near you. Ames Cryotherapy. What the fuck is this?
See, I could see that one.
Well, see, I figured it was like maybe they found some sponsored advertisement that I just don't know exists.
Well, that or like when we were on the show, I think you pulled it up on your phone, so I could see why that one would
Yeah,
get on
that
your
might
phone.
be. But
Yeah,
then,
that makes
But the other one makes no
The
sense.
real kicker today,
God
which I
damn
think he said happened more than once, is that he got there's apparently a place in Ames called Pumpkin Spice. And he got a targeted ad for that.
yeah. So it says, see what's new with Pumpkin Spice, a new page in the Ames, Iowa area. I got that 14 hours ago.
I for sure didn't get that one. Did you get that one,
No,
Robbie?
not even a little bit.
and I haven't clicked on it. Maybe I don't.
Don't click on it.
No,
No,
I'm going to. I
Now
did.
you're on a list somewhere. You're going to get more Pumpkin
Automatically
Spice
joined.
stuff. You're going to get targeted advertisement for
Oh, you
Uggs.
got to be kidding me. There are
What,
30
yeah.
people that follow this page, 28 people that follow this page, excuse me. It's just called Pumpkin Spice. And it is somebody in this
Ames.
this area. No, Des Moines and Urbandale are the location tags for all these pictures, but it is just pictures of pumpkin spice products. Febreze, Quaker Oats, pumpkin spice lattes, pumpkin spice Dunkin' Donuts. Just
So bringing it back to cars, Adams Polishes, who had
oh god,
who
damn,
had
I
something
saw this.
had something in the latest petrol box. They had the glass cleaner. They had it was an interior detailer, maybe.
Yep.
It's pumpkin spice.
Yeah.
Thought it was a joke.
No, it's not.
It's because I saw it the first time. I was like, that's funny, and then I saw it again. I was like, oh, wait a second, no, this is a real product.
Yeah.
Thought it was like an April Fool's Day sort of thing. Not true.
Nope. I really don't want my car to smell like pumpkin spice.
Some people do though. I bet they've
Lots
sold
of white
more.
girls.
I bet they've sold. You know who's buying it? Professional detailers.
Guys who wear Uggs, because their girls would want their cars to smell like pumpkin spice.
Possibly.
It already smells like pumpkin spice because they buy lattes every single day, like my boss. Every day.
Every day. That's an expensive habit.
I know.
It's a lot of money.
That's a life I couldn't live.
No.
Yeah, those are so many tires you could buy.
I know. Or get for free.
Yes.
It's just got to pay for the gas. But anyway, I just think that's funny. I can't believe you haven't gotten a targeted advertisement for like Jones Soda.
I think someone's just fucking with me. I think that someone has figured out how to like send notifications my way. Because how would they know otherwise? It's either that or Facebook is like it has become a sentient being, and it follows me
Do you think it's
through the day.
It's possible. It is possible that potentially there is a way for it to listen, in air quotes, to an audio file and be able to pick out key phrases
If they are,
Yes.
they should be paying us for it.
and then send you targeted advertisement.
They should be paying us for that. For sure.
James, do you think that's possible?
I think that's possible. That's probably in the terms of service that no one reads.
You agreed to it, like
I'm sure you do
you
when you
signed up.
in your iTunes. That's the other thing. You're the only Apple
But we
user.
as-
Maybe it's on iTunes.
But we as the content provider should get paid for that.
I agree, but you probably waive your right to it when you sign up to put a podcast on, or you
Yeah.
sign up to use iTunes. Like James said, the
Yeah.
thing is like 20 pages long. Nobody reads it.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
does that
it
accept?
transcribes voicemails now, so it's got to be able to pick out keywords.
I guess if anybody else is getting these, I want to know. Especially Apple users who listen to podcasts a lot. Are you getting these weird, oddly specific targeted notifications?
no, I just get the ads that show up. Like if I buy something on Amazon or eBay, I get an ad the next day saying, "Hey, are you trying to buy this?" I'm like, yeah, I bought it yesterday. I don't need an advertisement for it. I already bought it.
Wasted space, wasted
is.
time. Anyway,
tell you.
that was it. Just throwing Adam under the bus a little bit. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
You want to do your opener?
Sure.
Let's do Adam's opener, presented by Eyes Up Auto Art.
So, as anybody who follows us on social media or is a member of our Facebook group already knows, I bought a new car last week.
New to you.
New to me. Bought a new daily driver. I bought a 1998 S10 Blazer.
Now, somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm fairly certain that they didn't make a manual S10 Blazer.
I don't know if that's true or not, but this one is not.
Man, what a practical,
It is a
reliable
practical-
transmission to
it is-
have.
it is a
It's
very
responsible.
Not only that, it was owned by a mechanic. Used to be owned by a mechanic.
It was
That's
for
also
a very short period of time.
that's very practical, reasonable. He did a lot of work on it, so that makes sense.
Yep.
Not one drop of oil.
It's amazing.
You don't know that, Robbie.
I feel pretty
Yeah, then-
confident.
How do you know where he's been then?
They're like breadcrumbs. I've been lost multiple times this week. I can't
Your oil
find a way to
budget
get
is
back.
just your oil budget's
Yeah.
just going to drop.
Also practical and reliable and reasonable.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I was digging through the owner's manual for it, I found the original window sticker. And now this is easily the most option-loaded vehicle I've ever owned. It has heated seats, lumbar, power seats, like the full fancy radio, everything. Easily the fanciest like option-loaded vehicle I've ever owned,
Your Audi?
including my Audi.
I thought your Audi had a bunch of options.
My Audi did not have manual seats. It did not have lumbar adjustment of any sort. It didn't have any of that stuff.
Wow.
The only thing that this Blazer doesn't have that I think may have been an option, and I do not know in 1998, possibly a sunroof. I don't have one. I'm fairly certain I've seen Blazers with sunroofs, but
yeah.
maybe that was just later. I don't know. But I don't have that. So, but I do have on the window sticker the original price for this vehicle. And we've talked many times about how vehicles have almost seemingly outpaced inflation in their price increases. And so I also actually have the original window sticker for my 1984 Dodge Omni. So I went and got on manufacturer websites and built what I believe to be modern day comparable vehicles to these and got the prices for them, and then went and found an inflation calculator and adjusted the final purchase price of these vehicles accordingly to see if we were right about that.
The engineer in me is so happy that you did so much math this week.
I allowed Google to do the math for me. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Robbie.
He
You
at
did
least
the, you did,
attempted
you
some
did the
math.
legwork. I'm proud of you.
I did. This is like
He input variables.
This is-
How about that?
Yeah.
significantly
Yeah.
more research than I've ever put into any of these openers ever, for sure.
I like this motivation out of you.
Yes.
Well, it's just real journalism, you know. It hit me. Here we are.
We got some real journalism coming up later that I'm really excited about as well.
So, we'll start with the Omni, because that one is a little bit less of a shocker, frankly, to me. The Omni in 1984 cost a total of $82,220. Or no, sorry,
No.
$8,528, including destination charge. So
Okay.
$8,528. The car was $8,220 plus a $308 destination fee, which brings us to $8,528 even. Adjusted for inflation brings me to $19,977.
Reasonable.
So so to me that's very reasonable because this is a relatively option-loaded car for the time. I mean, it didn't have anything fancy because it's a 1984. So this isn't really a very good comparable comparison because what are now considered base options didn't even exist at this time.
Yeah, that'd be like your luxury options on the Cadillacs. And
Yeah. So, but what I thought was the most comparable vehicle was a Focus ST.
Size-wise, it would be similar.
Yep.
I mean, that mid-size hatch
in that time
has grown. But yeah, so
Right,
I would agree
exactly.
with that. I think that's fair.
They are more in size-wise, like straight comparison. It's more in line with a Fiesta, but this was bigger than the smallest cars of the time.
Yeah.
And it was designed specifically to compete with the GTI.
Yep.
So I wanted front-wheel drive, but I wanted a performance version of a hatchback, a four-door hatchback specifically. So a vehicle that is similarly optioned out. Now, mind you, there are very few options on the Focus ST list. Basically, there is an ST, and then the performance package that gets you like the Recaros and like the fancy infotainment center, which was not an option in this car, so I left that out. $25,650.
So that's 30% more.
Roughly.
Okay. I can.
So
I
that
think our statement still stands.
our
at that
statement
point.
still stands on that one. So, but my Blazer, on the other hand,
So before you switch to the Blazer,
Yep,
I
go
know the
ahead.
purchase price on my '79 Z28 Camaro, which was an optioned car, was like I said, 1979, was $79.90 or something like that. So it's basically $8,000. And you could, I think there are maybe a couple more things you could add to get it above $8,000, but so that would be similar 5-year difference between those two cars. I think those prices would be basically the same. But you cannot buy a Z28 Camaro today, which is a different caliber of car. I'd probably compare it to an SS. You cannot buy an SS Camaro for, what'd you say, 19 something now?
19. No, sorry. The Focus is 25.6. My
couldn't-
Omni was 19.9.
Yeah. So you couldn't even touch a V8 Camaro for that
No,
money.
I think you'd be buying like a stripper rental spec
Yep.
V6 with cloth.
Yep.
So
Yep. So
the Blazer, mind you, as I mentioned before, this is a very option-loaded car. But this price, we talked a little bit about this before it started, and both of you guys were low. So I held the information. I'm going to let James guess. James, what do you think in 1998 an option-loaded Chevy Blazer would have cost somebody?
can we say our prices so James
Please.
can start from somewhere? I said 28, I think is what I said. What
I
did you
went
say?
low and went 20.
I would say 35.
James is high, but not by that much, frankly. $32,200, including destination.
Yeah, it's got to be like $3,000 in options, though.
$5,500 in options.
Whoa.
So even, what was the number again? 30 what?
32,205.
So even still, you'd be looking at a $27,000 base.
$25,176 is the base price for that car.
25.
25,176.
25,176. Okay. And that's basically 20 years ago. So here's a quick rule of
So
thumb.
this is-
Doesn't work in every decade.
Yep.
20 years of doubles.
Right. So this is the V6 car, the 4.3,
Can I see that?
which is the bigger
that
motor.
list? Thank you.
than what was available. I don't know that you could get. I don't think you can get a 4-wheel drive 4-cylinder Blazer. If you could, it would be abysmally slow. But it had locking differentials, 373 gears, a luxury package, stuff like that. So what I did, one of our most talked about vehicles, modern day vehicles, that is very much a descendant of the Blazer, is the Colorado. I understand Colorado's a pickup, Blazer's not, but they're built. You know, the S10 and the Blazer are built on the same chassis.
Yep.
And so I figured that building a Colorado was more comparable than, say, an Equinox.
Yeah, I would go with that just because the Equinox isn't the same.
It's not the same.
Platform.
You're not going to get like a a real 4-wheel drive equal. You could probably get an all-wheel drive one, but that's not the same thing.
No, I'll go with you on the
So
Colorado.
that's what I did. And the other thing is that we've talked about the Colorado being wildly overpriced many, 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 many times.
Yes.
Right? So I built a Colorado. Now, because it's a Colorado and it's a truck, there are a ton of options that I didn't get for the bed, like getting spray-in bed liners,
Right.
tonneau covers, random stuff like that. So I got a luxury package, which gives you leather, which I have, gives you the heated seats, which I have, gives you a bunch of the power seats, stuff like that. 3.6 liter V6, which is not the top of the line motor, but comparable. It's not the diesel. Premium Bose stereo package, because mine has the fancy radio. It has since been replaced because technology changes radically. But so that Colorado, what do you think?
80.
No.
Calm down, Robbie.
65.
48.
You guys are all way high. I think that we
48.
have wildly been overestimating what a Colorado costs. That Colorado is $39,745.
Wow, that's a lot lower than I thought.
Weren't they advertising at like 45 base?
$39,745 with destination charge. My Blazer, adjusted for inflation, $48,483.
That's crazy.
That is $9,000 more than a comparably equipped Colorado of modern today.
So it's cheaper.
Significantly. Now, I don't know if, like, I tried to find it. I didn't look real hard, I'll be honest, because this was getting late and I'm old. But
It's over 28, yeah.
right, so I tried to find like option for option, like base model. Was a Blazer more expensive than an S10? I don't know that. Because then if they made a Blazer version of the Colorado, whatever that would be called, would it be more? Just because it's quote unquote more practical, more useful, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, probably a little bit.
The other interesting thing is you can tow a lot more with a current Colorado than you can with the Blazer.
5,500 pounds with my
Oh, can you really?
With my Blazer.
Not that much more, though.
Not a
Only
ton.
500 or 1,000 pounds more.
Yeah.
That's a lot. You can tow a lot with a Blazer.
I think that the diesel
Crazy.
one can do like 75 or something.
Oh, no. What was the towing capacity on your Blazer? That's what I meant.
I think it's 5,500 pounds.
Oh, it is 5,500 pounds.
Pretty sure
Okay.
it is. But the new Blazer or the new Colorado gets way better gas mileage.
Yeah, definitely.
That is one thing that really sucks about that truck that I bought.
You're
Like
probably getting the
17,
same.
15, something
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
getting the same gas mileage I am
Yeah, I think I am.
in the six liter.
In your 6 liter, significantly faster and slightly larger vehicle.
You know what's interesting? So your price was 32, whatever. I'm pretty sure the price for the almost 10 years newer Trailblazer SS was only $8,000 more, maybe 10.
I can't remember for sure, but my Audi had the original window sticker, and I swear it was only 36, and that was an option-loaded car.
I had a 98 A6, and it was 30 or 32. It may
Yeah.
have been cheaper than
That's
this
a
Blazer.
crazy price.
It is a crazy price.
Can you imagine spending $32,000 on a Blazer in
Or what'd you say the equivalent
1998?
was? 48,000
$48,000, almost 50
On a Blazer.
grand.
with a plastic dash.
Absolutely not.
It's crazy, crazy money.
I'm still in shock at how overly priced I had the Colorado in my
I
head.
think we all did. I think. That
or did we just look at the
Well,
the LT1
the other thing
prices?
I wonder, the other ZR1,
ZR1, sorry.
ZR1.
What's the fancy one?
ZR2. ZR2. That's what it is. The other thing I just realized that maybe I messed up a little bit. I don't remember if I selected like a regular cab or a crew cab. And I wonder if maybe that changes the price significantly.
Oh, I'm sure it probably
Yeah, and
would.
Because usually when you go in there, the most base model is what it is selected by default, and if you want
Yeah.
up from there, you got to pick it. And I wonder if I forgot to change from, regular cab short box to crew cab.
Well, even
Maybe.
even this fully optioned one on their website's 40,000.
Yeah,
The one they show on their
Yeah.
the one that they
That
display on
says
their website is this
starting
is the
at
great one.
20,
Yep.
and then it says as shown 40.
Yep. You want your mind hole blown even more open? While you
bit.
guys were looking at that, I was looking up because I started wondering. Okay, so we're looking at different decades of cars adjusted for inflation. What if we go back farther? What
Right.
happens?
absolutely.
1966, SS 396 Chevelle.
I think we talked about this
about
months ago, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we talked about this, maybe even this car specifically.
Even I think what the claim was on that article was that the price, the inflation adjusted price on that car, you still could have bought 2 Honda Accords.
Yeah,
Or, sorry,
yes, that's what it was.
You could have bought 2 of those for one.
That's
Honda
what it was.
Accord.
So again, circling back to that again, I think this was the same price we came up with then, $17,500 today. You could have bought a 396 Chevelle in 1966 for $2,270.
Which is $17,000 by today's standards.
$17,500. Yep.
I mean, how many of us have bought cars that are way more expensive than that and not nearly as cool?
Right. The Veloster was more, even after discounts.
I paid more than that for my used 30,000-mile TT.
Yep. So, and I think that to me indicates really that safety standards and emission standards have had a significant effect on the price of cars, because this would be pre-emissions, pre really safety. I mean, you didn't have to have shoulder belts in 1966. It may not even have come with shoulder belts, because in our 68 Camaro and in the 70 Monte Carlo we had, they were detachable
options.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were basically an option. Exactly.
I don't remember what year it is, but one of the Firebirds my dad had at one point, there was a clip up above the door that you could tuck the shoulder belt into if you weren't going to use it.
Yep.
To keep it from dangling in
your way. God forbid you wear the thing.
Well, it's also probably all the electronics and the infotainment systems in the cars now.
I think that that adds a lot to it. Base model cars are a lot fancier than even fully optioned cars from, say, the 80s, let alone the 60s.
Yeah. Yep, emissions, safety, infotainment. Those are all expensive items. But people are willing to pay for those stupid infotainment systems.
Which is ridiculous.
For better or worse.
Yeah.
I mean, people are willing to shell out some serious cash for those.
I still would like to see a crank window on a new vehicle.
It's a thing.
I know.
You can buy
like
a full-size Chevy pickup with a crank window.
That's what you need, Robbie. You need to go out and get a brand new fleet spec.
Why would I get a brand new fleet spec? Why wouldn't I just get a used?
There's no such thing as a good used fleet spec vehicle.
No, I wouldn't get a fleet spec vehicle.
They're all screwed.
I'd just get a nice used one.
Can I introduce you to the DOT auction?
Ooh, there you go, Robbie.
They're like $3,000.
You get a tow pig real cheap.
That's probably, I mean, they've had a lot of miles put on them, and they've been rode hard.
Oh, yeah.
But they've generally been maintained probably better than what the general public maintains.
You do realize I was gonna go to one, but it was the week before we closed on the house.
And you could get them in bright orange, Robbie.
You need a bright orange truck. You need
a
a farm truck or whatever you want to call it, an estate vehicle.
Jeez.
An estate maintenance vehicle.
A tow pig would be nice.
You could tow with it also.
But you need to be able to haul away leaves and branches and stuff like that.
No, I don't.
Too.
I just light them on fire. In pits.
He can light them on fire. I'm the one who's screwed, who is in Des Moines,
with you too.
And I can't do. I mean, you could burn them, but it would be a spectacle, and somebody would probably call the fire department. You'd have to explain how your fire pit's 15 feet from any combustible materials and get your tape measure out, and it's a whole deal.
I just hate that there's a tree dump in Ames, but it's privately owned, so you have to pay them to take your trees.
Yep.
And then they run them through a chipper and sell them back to my neighbor as mulch. And I'm like, wait a second.
Yep.
I have to pay you to take
geniuses.
To take
They
the
are
shit off
geniuses.
my
That is a
hands.
business genius.
I think it's vertical integration, I believe, is the term.
It's pretty amazing.
That's all I got.
Speaking of business things, should we move on to the topic that we want to talk about with James specifically?
Yes.
Is everybody okay with that?
Professional podcast.
Before we move on to that, make sure to go to Eyes Up Auto Art on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's EYESUP Auto Art. If you go to his Instagram page, I know he just posted a picture of a Mustang he did that was pretty rad. He was talking about it was basically a sunset behind the Mustang and how he had to paint the reflection of the light across the hood of the car.
I didn't even notice that.
Said it was kind of a murder. It was murderous, but it turned out really good.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Yeah,
I think
that one looked great.
I think you should be proud of that one for sure. But if you guys are thinking about commissioning a piece for yourself, just send him a message on any one of those social media networks, and he'll work up some pricing, sizing, all that fun stuff for you. Very reasonable, cool dude to work with too. I That's Eyes Up Auto Art on any of those social media platforms. So
Yeah, I really love mine. The one I got, he did all the little details, sponsor logos, and even the blue chrome on my visor for the helmet turned out awesome.
yeah, yours turned out really good too.
Yeah.
They are super cool.
Yeah, they are cool. They definitely are cool.
That Mustang looks
I know you just
intense.
the details of that type of stuff. On a quick glance, you miss it.
I did miss it, and then
Yeah.
now, it's incredible.
But if you go back and look at it, it's pretty amazing.
Now
But
I'm
it's
looking
stuff if you get wrong, it's really noticeable. But
I'm
if you
looking
get
at
it right,
James's now.
you
The
gotta see it.
helmet. The helmet is awesome.
Yeah, it blew my mind when I saw the helmet up close. Yeah, it's so good.
That's super cool.
What size is yours, James?
I forget. It was like the bigger one of the bigger ones, because I wanted to put it up in a room. So I want to say 20 inches by something. It's pretty big. So, but it very reasonably priced. I was surprised at how reasonably priced it was. So
Yeah, I'm glad somebody else can say that and give an
make a-
outside perspective. Because when he told me the pricing for stuff, I was like, people need to be lining up for this because it's amazing. What you're
you
doing.
know
I
Art
was like,
goes for?
woohoo, I'm getting in at the cheap prices before they go up.
Before he turns into some of his competitors that are super pricey.
Yeah.
That having stuff commissioned is not cheap most of the time. Like I saw, I won't say who it is, but somebody traded a car for some art. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And not a cheap car at that. So it's expensive. I mean, it's legitimately expensive.
Any art, anything like that's super expensive.
Yeah,
Photography is insane. I know this.
Yeah, photography is crazy.
Looking at like wedding and engagement pictures and shit.
Yeah,
It's
dude,
like,
it's
Terrifying.
It's
isn't it?
crazy.
oh my god.
All that stuff's expensive. And then you hear the prices that he does stuff for, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's a
awesome.
steal.
Maybe you could have him come paint you instead. It might be cheaper.
Actually, it would be,
Probably would
it
be.
might be
Well
cheaper.
cheaper.
It'd be cheaper for him to fly him out, have him paint the wedding, fly home.
Everybody stand still.
I already got it. Actually, I told her we just bought a camera for the podcast, so I'm gonna have Michael do it.
Oh, shit. The other day, somebody was talking about their wedding and having pictures and stuff done, and I was like, shh, just shut up, just shut up, just fly under the radar. Nobody knows you're here. Like, really? That's expensive. Crazy, right? I gotta go. Somebody's calling me. I gotta answer
So
this
it's
text.
a work thing. I
just gotta get it. Peace out. Damn it.
Can we put 1010's logos on them?
I'm gonna do that center
Watermarks?
I'm gonna do that center watermark on all of them. The problem is people start calling me. You do wedding photos? No. Go away.
Put Tim's name on it.
Put Tim's phone number on it. For inquiries, call. Anyway. So, James, as I said earlier, back in the spring, we talked about the beginning of your race season and kind of some exciting stuff that you had been working on with some of your partners and how your season was starting out. Before we jump into kind of the grassroots sponsorship piece of it, tell us a little bit how your season has gone this year since we talked to you last.
Yeah, I've had a pretty good season. Anytime I can go out racing is a good time. But I've had my ups and downs. This year we struggled a little bit with a misfiring engine, which we eventually got solved. But some of the starts of the races, I basically had to pull to the left and let everybody fly by me, and then catch up, and then work my way back through the field, which was kind of frustrating for 1 or 2 races there. And then I had a suspension part go out. And basically, I had to end the race early. I was able to pull the car into the pits, but it was dragging across the floor. But then I've also had my best result to date, where I podiumed recently at Sonoma Raceway, which was a great feeling. So I've had my ups and downs like anybody in racing. So, but overall, I've had a fantastic season. Not only just racing the car, but also in the paddock and with my partners too. We did an event with one of our major partners, Millennium Engineering and Integration Company, where we basically did a day for the workers from that company to come out to the racetrack and see what it was like to go racing. I had T-shirts and hats for them, and everybody got to sit in the car and see what it was all about. So that was actually a great weekend. Lots of support from everybody there, and it was also a lot of fun. So,
Are they a big company, or are they just kind of a small outfit?
Yeah, they're actually a reasonably sized company. They are just over 500 workers right now, and they're winning multiple contracts in the aerospace area. So they do a lot of cybersecurity, aerospace design, defense design, engineering services, kind of thing like that. So they started off as a small company, and they've just grown and grown over the years. So
So you have several partners that you work with. Millennium's kind of your, what would you call them, your flagship sponsor then?
Yeah, for the first half of the season, they were a title sponsor, and then we've carried them through for the back end of the season, also as a sponsor and partner. So for the first half of the season, they basically had the rights to the front of the car and the artwork and things like that. So they were, I would say, my title sponsor for the year, and they've been great support. Not only on the track, but also off the track with events and things like that.
Just before we kind of dive into more of the aspects of the different types of sponsorship, just to give a feel for who all you're working with for 2017, who are your partners?
So Millennium, we mentioned, and then I have working with CSR Performance, who basically I've worked with for many years on the race car. Then we have some partnerships with Red Horse Performance. They provide fittings and hoses for us for the car. Freeam USA provides my race gear and the suit. Redline Oil have been great partners this year. They've helped us out a lot with all of our lubricants, fluids for the car. Rod End Supply we've had for a couple of years now. They provide great suspension components for the car. We worked a deal with Bartlett Built for some of their safety seating systems. I've been working with Vibratite, who are they're basically a thread locking company. A lot of their stuff's made in the U.S., U.S.-owned company, and they produce great stuff. We use them in the aerospace industry, and that's how I first heard of them. And then they're fantastic, so I've been loving working with them. And then I've done some great work with Super 8, is a local hotel to one of the racetracks, and they provide me, great night stays. And then been working with Wine Country Motorsports, which most people will know is, one of the premier equipment and race car safety stuff suppliers for the industry. So
when you did this your first year, I assume you were working with CSR. I'm just trying to kind of lay out for people when you started racing versus where you're at now, how your sponsorship and partnership with different companies has progressed. So I assume when you started out, you were basically on your own. It was all self-funded, and then you slowly started to add people to your roster.
Yeah, so the first 2 years, I really wasn't doing anything in sponsorship. It's self-funded. I was basically paying for everything myself and, doing it on my limited budget. And then last year was the year where I really started to progress towards, mid to late of the season. And then this year I made a big push to bring on more partners, and we've just grown and grown throughout the season. So having Millennium come on board was a big help. And then we've worked with a variety of different partners this year. And then, we kind of reached a point where it started to grow upon itself, and it was people had heard about me, and so I wasn't always introducing myself from scratch. So,
what was the tipping point? What changed from being self-funded to actually bringing somebody on for the first time?
That's an interesting. I would say asking would probably be the biggest tipping point, but it just where I think it clicked in my mind that I wanted to do more than just the racing of the car. I wanted to learn a little bit more about business, and then treating it more professionally rather than an amateur hobby. I was trying to treat it a little bit more from a business sense and learn that side. I like learning new skills, so I'm always looking to learn something new, and learning about the business was I guess what triggered going into it. And then the approach and the way I approached it was more of a it's a professional kind of work for me. So I work on things. I spend a fair amount of time on it, and it's not just it's not just a sticker on the car and they give me some money kind of thing. There's more to it than that.
Did you take a course or read a book, or what gave you the knowledge, I guess, to get started in soliciting partners?
Yeah, so I started out, I was looking into it. There were a couple of books out there. There were a few that were okay. And then recently, there was actually been a very good book that's come out, Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorship. This is by Alex Striller, who is the director of sales and marketing for Team Lucas. And so it's written from the company's perspective that wants to give out sponsorship. And so he provides a lot of good insights and stuff. But at the time, that book wasn't available. But if someone's looking into sponsorship, I would really recommend that as a good read. It provides a good overview, and it kind of gets you into the other mindset. They're companies, they're doing it because it provides return to them or value to them. So, but when I started doing it, it just so happened that I was following along on something, and there was Brian Bonner, who had started up a program to kind of train drivers how to go and do marketing themselves. He's been in IndyCar, and he's done a lot of marketing and sponsorship and partnerships. And he was looking to start up a training program to, try and teach the skills and tools that people need so they can go off and kind of learn and do it themselves. I think part of that was, wanting to share his knowledge with, up and coming drivers. And then also part of it was he was seeing how bad and how poor a lot of people were doing it and wanted to, in general, help the industry. So I started out that course with him, and over, a period of time, he taught me a lot of skills, completely changed my perspective on how I approached the sponsorships and partnerships, and taught me basically the foundation that I had to go forward and then develop and grow from there.
I think what a lot of people probably get caught on, a lot of people that race but don't have any partners, is they're not sure where to start. I think that there is maybe a misconception about sponsorship in motorsports where if you perform at a certain level, or you have a certain level of Instagram following, or whatever, you've got certain, you're in every press release, you're in whatever else, that somebody, and meaning somebody, I mean everybody, Lucas Oil and Monster and whoever else you want to name, is just going to call you. Like, if you just sit by the phone long enough, you just work on the car and work on your technique, those guys are going to call you, they're going to set it up for you, and it's going to be, it's all going to be golden. You don't have to put in any work. So I think there's that misconception. And then even for the people that may not think that necessarily, that they really think that they should be out and talking to people, they really just don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's common. That is, couldn't be further from the truth. I think the reason why you see people in press releases, and you see what they're doing, is because they've worked for, 5, 8, 10 years before that to start getting into press releases. And, they're working hard as it is to get out there. Especially nowadays, there's so many channels. There's so much noise out there. It's hard to, make a name for yourself. It's hard to be known. There's so many different ways to connect with people now. I would, the biggest thing that I see that people don't do is, if I'm not saying that for everybody this is true, but if I can't Google you and I can't find you, I've kind of, that's the first thing someone's going to do when they hear your name or they hear from you. They're going to go look to see do you have a website? Do you have a following? Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have, so if you're going to try and start doing this, I would start working on your presence. What are your goals? Don't just go out asking people for money. That's like the worst thing you can do. What are your goals? What do you want to do with your program? What things are important for you? Do you want to help with some charities? Are you interested in, helping a community? Do you, want to help the sport in general and bring awareness to it? Do you want to educate teens about safe driving? And then from there, go and have a look into what other people are doing in that space and see what's missing. You can kind of fill some gaps, and then also start to look at partnerships. It was a long time before, I got a check in the mail with cash. Most of my partnerships aren't cash. They're, in-kind support, or we do a barter exchange on partnership stuff, or I supply a certain value in return for their value, or we leverage off each other, things like that. So getting started, I would say, look at building up your presence. Look at approaching it professionally. I know a lot of people in marketing, sales, sponsorship, and stuff. They'll go to LinkedIn and see if you're on LinkedIn. They'll see what kind of industry you're working in, see what you're doing, and stuff like that. They'll Google you, if they're interested. But if they can't find you very easily, you're just another name that they've never heard of.
Do you have Kanga Motorsports on your LinkedIn? Yeah,
so I have Kanga Motorsports on my LinkedIn. Most of my LinkedIn will be, in aerospace, but I do have Kanga Motorsports on my LinkedIn. I have, I had actually started on the webpage before I got into the marketing and sponsorships. Part of what I was doing was trying to help people understand how to get started in motorsports. I talked to so many people, and they're like, I don't even know how to get started. I don't know what car to get. How do I work out what car do I get? I'm just going to buy a car and build a car, and then, I find out the rules are wrong and I can't race that car. A lot of that stuff happens. So I wanted to do that, and I also wanted to bring awareness to Spec Racer Ford. I had, by accident come across Spec Racer Ford, and I hadn't heard about it until I got really started. And now I'd wish, I'd heard about it earlier. So I was trying to build up a website for helping people with Spec Racer Ford and how to get started in motorsports. So that's how I really started. And then from there, I was looking into how can I, offset some of my costs or learn a little bit more of the business side, and then kind of grew from there.
In your opinion, do you think people can rely solely on social media for their outreach, or do you think that they need a space like a website that they can manipulate kind of infinitely to create whatever image it is that they want to create?
Yeah, that's talked a lot nowadays. You don't own your Facebook page. Facebook owns your Facebook page. Every time that filter changes, it doesn't necessarily change for you to get, more value at it. It changes them to monetize it or, leverage it somehow. You're creating content that they're leveraging. A lot of people wonder how Facebook's making money. Facebook's making money off of you. That's how they're making money. So, in my opinion, I think you want a space that you control. You want a space that's yours. You can use Instagram. I use Instagram, Facebook, Twitter a lot. But, a lot of my stuff I'm putting out, I control the space and how it's presented. I don't always turn up the best on the Facebook because, they're putting a filter in and they're asking for, advertising money or whatever. But I can control, my website, how that looks and how my brand is presented there.
Yeah, what's really unfortunate about Facebook, and we were faced with this when we started the podcast last year, was, the following started to grow, and then all of a sudden we noticed that people were not actually seeing the content that we were producing because Facebook was putting it behind a barrier trying to entice us to pay for exposure, which really sucks.
When you get to a certain size or a certain amount of, so I'll put stuff out and I'll hear from some, friends of mine, like, I don't see any of your racing stuff anymore, and it's not because I'm not putting it out there or I'm not producing it. It's just, they're not seeing it because it's filtered, I may have a following of a couple hundred, but, only 5 people might see any article that goes out.
Well, the really unfortunate thing, too, is that when you try to produce content and then filter people through your website, Facebook is aware of that. They have an algorithm that can sense that. And so, if we post something from our website, it gets almost no traffic. I mean, we're talking less than 100 people, and we have over 900 people on our Facebook page.
So even YouTube, aren't they in bed with Facebook?
I don't think so.
No, Facebook's competing with YouTube now. So if you link to YouTube from Facebook, they will demote that content, in the filter. Whereas if you post the video to Facebook as a different video, you'll get a different response.
Right.
Oh, the reach is...
I ran a test where I posted the same video between them, and on Facebook I was getting way more views and hits on that video than I was with YouTube.
It's one of those things where you want to be like, man, that's bullshit, but I
get it.
You use the platform for free, so I mean, they can do whatever they want. And, just like we were talking about with Apple, it's in the terms of service somewhere that whenever it was you started your Facebook page, that they can do whatever they want, basically. I mean, it's their website. So
yeah, so things you can do to work around that a little bit is, producing good high quality content is always gonna help you, but you can a lot of people aren't aware of how all that works in their day-to-day Facebook. If they're not running a page or they're not running a brand on there, they don't understand it all. But if someone follows you or goes and marks that they want to see this stuff first, they can follow along your content and they'll see it first. You'll be able to prioritize what content you see. Also, if they're liking your stuff a lot, in general, they will see your stuff more. But it's kind of the industry, I think, recognizes it, and everybody understands it. It's kind of a necessary evil. If you're not on Facebook, people won't find you if that's the only method that they're using.
It's almost like you don't exist if you're not on Facebook. Which,
yeah,
I was looking at what we do with our Facebook now versus what we did with it a year and a half ago. I mean, we were posting on it every day, if not more. And now we post on it a couple times a week, 3 times a week, or whatever. But it's almost there just to be there. Do you know what I mean? We get way more reaction. So the group gets a lot of reaction, but Facebook's pushing groups right now. So that's
groups are free reach, and I kind of wonder how long that's going to be when they're tied to pages.
Right, exactly. I think once the group aspect of that, once Facebook's gotten out of it what they want, I think that reach will diminish also.
At least for admin posts.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely for admin stuff. I think, they're going to find a way to monetize it. You kind of have to, that's the business model. And this video thing, Facebook Live and Facebook Video, they were prioritizing that type of content because they want to get more content like that. Mm-hmm. But at a certain point, they started monetizing it. So, I understand that's how business works. They're making money and they're a for-profit company, so they should be doing that, for the shareholders. But I'm just saying, if you want to put your brand out there, if you really want to control things, use all those tools that are out there, but also have your own space where you can control exactly what your brand's doing. You can control the message, and people can go there. I get a lot of traffic that's through search, through Google, and it's the same kind of thing. You come up prioritize content if you're advertising, or if you're more on topic, or the highest hits for that search kind of thing. But I also have people that just go direct to the website. They know where the content's going to be. They want to learn something about Spec Racer Forward, or they want to see, I forgot how to change the starter motor out, so I'm going to go look that up. That kind of thing happens. So I'd recommend having your own space where you can control your brand, but you're going to have to use some of the other channels to
funnel some content at some level.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the companies out there that are internet-based business, they use the sales funnel to feed into their page, and then they get you on a mailing list, and then they'll give you free value content, and then they might hit you up for a couple bucks on the next ebook or something, and that's how they make their money. But they're providing value and content to you, and if you like their stuff, support them, and that's how it works. If you're just trying to help out, you want to educate people in an industry, or you want to teach people how to get into motorsports, you might just provide all that stuff for free.
So we kind of divulged into a whole social media rant that I didn't intend to, but it was. I think it's valuable though. I mean, the way that you face not only the people that consume your racing, just as consumers, but also how partners will view you. That's an important part of the whole partnership, life cycle, I guess you could call it. But to kind of get back on track a little bit, so let's look at now that you are where you are, you have some experience with partnership. You've grown, you've had your missteps, you've had your successes. So when you look at 2018, how does James approach bringing on either new partners? Let's start with new partners. When you're looking at bringing on new partners for next year, what does that process look like?
So, there is a multitude of companies out there. You can approach any one of them, but there's only a limited amount of time I have. So what I like to do is I like to approach companies. There's a few different categories. There's endemic companies, so companies that are already in motorsports. I use their products. I might be able to get a discount on their products in exchange for other value I provide, or I might get some in-kind support from them. Those companies are great, but they also have, thousands of racers contacting them every year asking for the same sort of stuff. So while they can be good and they can be supportive and they're all about motorsports and meets your audience, they're not always the easiest companies because there's everybody, contacting them. It's hard to kind of stand out. So you really need a personal relationship, talking with the people, knowing the people, and the deal may take a long time. Some deals may take 18 months or more. So there's those companies that I'll make a list and I'll go through and I'll identify companies I like working with. I like what they're doing. Then there's other companies which are not related to motorsports. And they may be big companies that you've heard of. In general, for grassroots racing, those companies, while they may be supportive and all, if you already know about those companies or you're very familiar with those companies, for instance, pick Monster Energy. I'm not going to really go contact Monster Energy at my level. They're not really looking for the type of value I'm going to provide, and they're already getting more exposure than I can provide for them. So it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be valuable for them to get my type of exposure and talking to them. And so, I look at that list, I'll have that list there, and then I'll prioritize from those kind of companies. And then there's the other companies that I may know of just in my dealings in day-to-day life, or I may have researched companies that work in different areas. But people don't know about them. And so I could provide an avenue for them or value to them that will provide either exposure, knowledge, things like instructional videos, graphics support, a message for them, kind of thing that would meet a different demographic for them, and they can open up a new business area to get either more customers or provide different types of value. And so I'll list those types of companies too, and then I'll prioritize those lists and then go forward. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to contact those companies, see if there's any interest, hear about what their needs are, and talk to them, mostly to listen, mostly to hear about what they need, what they're looking for, what their experience is, what they're looking to do with their goals for marketing and customers or business to businesses in the future, and then try and see if there's a good, avenue for us or a good partnership, or they would be well suited to what I do. If they're not really going to get a lot of value out of what I'm going to do, I don't really want to chase after them and try and convince them of something that I'm not, and try to sell something that I don't think is going to be of value to them. So, I have a list that I work through at different companies, and I'll prioritize that list. And then I only have so much time available, and so I prioritize who I'm contacting and what I'm contacting, and what I think I can bring of value to them.
So how are you contacting these companies? Are you cold calling them?
Some of them I'll either have reached out through my network, and I may know somebody who's working with them. I may know of someone who knows of someone in them and ask for an introduction. I may do some cold calling, but I will research the company a little bit more, have thought about what I would think I can provide value to them, and then talk to them and have a conversation. Sometimes you'll just get a flat out no, or you'll get we're not interested right now, contact us later, or you'll get, just no response in general. And that can be tough, but that's just how things are. You're trying to provide value to them in exchange for value to you. But mostly you should approach it from a value to them standpoint. What do you think you can provide value to them? And value comes in very different forms. It's not just, getting more exposure. Yeah, anyone can buy a billboard on any highway in the country and get exposure. But is it targeting a specific audience? Is it really going after customers that are in that niche, or are you providing a message that is even useful to the people seeing it? So,
I think the hang up a lot of people are going to have when they listen to this is, okay, so you've kind of told people how you're getting started and then how you're approaching new people, but the thing that may be a fear for people or something that they should be aware of so that they can try to overcome it is that when they go to reach out to these companies, especially if you don't work in the industry and you don't have a lot of good contacts, you're going to get a lot of negative responses, or you're going to get a lot of no's. And you kind of touched on that, but I think it's really important for people that, excuse me, if they decide that they're going to do this, that they need to go in with a certain level of mental toughness, because you're going to get 9 no's so that you can get 1 yes. Or maybe you'll get 19 no's so you can get 1 yes. Or you'll get 30 no responses so that you can talk to one person and then, it just doesn't, you can't align your goals and it doesn't work out. I mean, it's I don't want to call it a numbers game because I think that in some way dilutes it to just a sales strategy, but it's hard. I mean, you have to stick in it and stay with it. I mean, did you feel like you really struggled with that when you started?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not typically a very, I'm a little bit more of an introverted person. I'm not an extrovert that's always out there, shouting and, carrying on and getting attention and stuff like that. So it is hard, rejection's hard in any form. But what I try to do is I try to do some research ahead of time. I try to work out a little bit about the company. I try to work out if they're, if they would be interested. I don't just, write a list and then just bam, 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 hit each of those companies as I go. I try to work out, do I think this is going to work? And I do a little bit of a screening ahead of time. And that way, there's a little bit more. I understand it's a numbers game. I get that to some extent it is, but it also isn't. If you've done a little bit of homework, you've learned about the company, you see if their goals align with you, you see, what type of things they do, kind of thing. For instance, look at Monster Energy and how they promote. They're promoting extreme sports, active people, types of things. They have, girls out at events and things like that. I wouldn't necessarily try to partner them up with, the local church or something like that. That's not going to be a good partnership. But if you could partner something else like that, say, let's take, my rod end supply partner. They build suspension parts and rod end components predominantly for, off-road dirt track kind of stuff. But their bearings are fantastic. They're not really known in the road racing world, but they have a great product and it performs, really well in an environment that you may even think is harsher than the road racing environment. And so that was a great partnership because that would open up a new avenue for them. And it would provide more exposure in an underserved area for them. But it was in line with their goals, and it was in growing that company and adding value to that company, So just hitting every company in the phone book is not going to work. But back to your other point of the question, you're going to get rejection. And what you're going to do from that is you're going to learn. Your first few calls and your first few, contacts and trying to search for the right person, you may talk to the wrong person. You may be talking to the intern in the marketing department where you really need to talk to the marketing director, or you may fumble through your words and be really nervous and just completely blow a call. That's fine. That's going to happen. What you do is you don't get defeated by that. You take away and you learn by that, and you improve. And so you learn more about the industry. You learn more about the sport. And every conversation you have, you learn as you go. I've actually had some no's turn into yeses later on, or maybe he's just not not now, or I've had, some yeses, but I'm not sure how it would all work. And, the actual partnership, took, 18 months until it was really fruitful, or 12 months before we actually, formed and really got together, or, exchanging calls with someone, you keep, playing phone tag with them for 6 months before you actually get to talk to them. So that stuff's going to happen. You just have to be resilient to it and look at it from a learning perspective. Take something away each time. What did you mess up in that call? What would you have done differently? How do you think you could have approached it that would have worked better for that person? And then kind of get a feel from there.
Yeah, in that case, experience is your advantage. It's not the longer you're in it, I don't want to say the easier it's going to get, but the more you're going to learn, the more contacts you're going to have, and the more avenues you can try to explore. And then not only that, you've got open cases, for lack of a better term, that, as you said, may become fruitful, or maybe you find a partnership that makes sense, or maybe their marketing strategy changes in some way in the next year, and they go, yeah, this is definitely a market that we want to target more heavily. We want to put more dollars towards this, or we want to give you some sort of in-kind support. So, those things can start to come together for you at later dates. So the longer you're in it, that's the good news. If you're getting into it and you're starting to get discouraged, the more time you put into it, it should get better.
Yeah. And then also, don't just take no and then hang up, kind of learn, oh, okay, is this not what your company's direction is in the moment? What are you guys really looking for in the future? Maybe, can I contact you in 6 months from now? Or, try and do some follow up and learn, why it was a no, not just, the no that you got. Because that's going to teach you a little bit more about not only what that company is doing, but maybe what that the companies in that industry are doing, that segment of that industry. And so you can see what direction those companies are going.
And if you don't ask, you may, miss out on an opportunity where you just called on the wrong day.
Yeah.
Maybe that person was getting
people had a bad day or called them at a bad time.
Yep. Yeah. They're getting ready for a meeting, and so they're really short with you. And, maybe it's something that they do actually want to explore, but you literally called at the wrong minute, and if you'd called them next week when they had a free half hour, there could have been a deeper conversation, and, you guys could have worked something out. So that's an important aspect of it too. The follow-up piece of it's important.
Yeah. And then keeping track of it. So there's a couple of free softwares out there for customer relations management, and you can keep track of who you're contacting, what you talked about last time, what you've covered, what you were interested in, and then, talk to them in the future again, or set reminders to, kind of talk about what you want to talk about with them. They may say, now's not a good time, call me next quarter, and so you need to set a reminder on your calendar to call that person the next quarter and follow up on what you said you would do.
I think that's an important aspect of it that some people miss. I think some people take that response as, I don't want to talk to you, so I'm just telling you to call me in 6 months. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's literally like, I don't have any decision that I can make regarding my budget because it's set until our fiscal year resets. So I can't talk to you about this because I don't know what it's going to look like in 4 to 6 months. So if you call at that point, then they can go, oh, yeah, I can actually have a conversation about this because we have to make a decision on this in the next 6 weeks. So it's important to do what you say you were going to do. Whether or not they were blowing you off or they were giving you a real honest to goodness rejection for now.
Yeah, definitely follow up on what you say you're going to do. And then also, sometimes they're just a dead contact. Sometimes they're just not interested, don't want to be talked to again. And you can kind of get a sense for that. But often sometimes, situations are just wrong, or they're not looking right now for another partner, or, the budget is set, or they don't have the decisions to make right now. They typically have a cycle that they do it in or whatever, and they may tell you, try us back in 3 months. So definitely try them back in 3 months. One thing that was always recommended to me, and I think you often hear from some people, is being politely persistent. So not persistent to the point where you're annoying or frustrating or getting on the nerves, but, checking in with them. Not just checking in with them for the sake of checking in with them, but following up to see, hey, is there something we could do now? Or I had an idea about some way I could provide value to you. Or we just did a deal with another company, and I think we could tailor that to also do the same deal with you and leverage that kind of thing. That's always good. If you can provide, concrete examples of how you can help them and what value you can provide, they're more likely to talk to you, have a conversation with you. And then that provides you a way of knowing what they need, listening to what they want to achieve, and then seeing how you can provide them that value.
Yeah, I think approaching your conversations just from a standpoint of a transparency and honesty and wanting to create real value makes a big difference. As you said at the beginning, if you just kind of turn into you're just a money grab, that doesn't do anybody any good. If you're trying to provide real value though, and that's how you approach your conversations, that changes the tone of the conversations.
Yeah, I mean, if you understand the industry terms, you know what they're kind of looking for and what they're getting at. I think a lot of the deals that are out there may be no exchange in funds. It may be value for value, and those are in general tend to be some of the better deals because you're working together and it's a true partnership. You're not looking for a handout. You're not just saying, "Oh, I'll put your decal on the car and then give me some money." Those deals, those don't really exist anymore. Those are not how those deals are done. I think if you look at a lot of the professional racers out there, they're doing events, they're doing marketing days, they're doing company days, kind of thing. Those are what's valuable to them, or they're opening up new avenues for business to business. Those are the best deals around. There's no one really out there writing blank checks for the professional level, so there's highly unlikely going to be those people out there writing blank checks for the amateur level.
Unless you're Ken Block. I bet Ken Block gets a lot of checks written to him that would boggle your mind.
But he's doing something, right? He's providing value.
He
does a whole bunch of events. He's not just putting their name on the car.
No, right, exactly. He does a lot. He was just at some monster, I don't know what it was, but it was a monster event, and he was there, providing exposure and signing autographs and doing stuff for his Instagram and talking to people, and he's doing a lot of stuff. And then he also has sponsors, and he posts a video on YouTube this week, and he in a few days collects 4 million hits on a video. So we're not nobody that unless you know Ken Block, nobody's Ken Block. He exists in a bubble that none of us will ever understand unless we are extraordinarily, I don't want to say lucky, but
successful.
Right, you strike gold a million times in a row.
He's got to be one of the most marketable professional athletes on the planet.
Right.
I remember it's been many, many years ago, but Shaun White was named that at one point. Professional snowboarder. Where's he now? Who knows? But Ken Block's got to be that guy these days.
Yeah. So there is one guy. You could argue that there's one guy that has the level of exposure that he does. And whatever sport that you're racing in, whatever it is that you're doing, even if it's snowboarding or whatever, your market is different. The way that you need to provide value is different than him.
What I think is interesting about Ken Block specifically, that I think a lot of people could take something away from, he's I'm not saying he's a bad driver, because he's not by any means. Much better than I will ever be. But I don't think he's consistently, winning in a lot of the rallycross and stuff that he does, or rally.
Well, that's just it. You don't know how he's doing, because that's not what matters. It's a Ken Block brand.
Right.
If I tell you I have an event this weekend, Ken Block's going to be there. You show up.
But you
doesn't
don't have
matter.
to.
Doesn't matter what the event is. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If I told you Ken Block will be at this event, you will stop what you're doing and you'll be there.
You don't have to be the guy who's always first on the podium, and that guy might not be anybody to a lot of people.
Right. And that's
Ken Block's built a brand out of himself,
yes,
regardless of his success level at the race day on Saturday.
Yeah,
that's
that shows
that's as important as anything.
Yeah, the branding is
right.
arguably more important than your position on the podium.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you need to take both of those pieces into account when you think about your exposure or the value that you provide. What is your actual exposure, and then are you gaining a lot of value through being on the podium every single weekend? There's two sides of that story. And actually, I read that book that you recommended, James, the Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorships by Alex Striller. And he talks about that. Sometimes the guys that are the best funded or that have the best, the most valuable partnerships, meaning both directions, not just getting money, but just having a valuable partnership that works out for both parties, are not the guys that always come first. Maybe they have a different aspect where they have a huge YouTube channel. I mean, there was, I don't know if it was Lone Star Drift. My buddy Zach was telling me about it, but they were making an argument on their YouTube channel that as a drifter, you may want to consider not going the pro route. You may just want to consider doing spectacle shit like Ken Block, but at a smaller level.
Right.
Or look at Ryan Turek.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where he built his brand, was not by winning. It was by doing those YouTube shows.
Yeah, go back and look at Ryan Turek's Formula D record. It's not.
It's lackluster.
It's not great. He is in Formula. He's a pro.
He's a good driver.
He's a good driver.
Not taking that away from him.
He's more successful off the race or the drift track.
He's another one of those guys that he is almost bigger outside of Formula D than he is inside of Formula D.
Probably.
And I bet his fan base comes from outside.
People who don't drift.
My first exposure to him was through Grid Life. So, right. I mean, what does that tell you? And at the time, he was one of the only. That was in 2016, and he had done it the year before, I think.
2015, he was. If I'm not mistaken, he was the pro guy there.
Right.
Everybody else was local, amateur level guys, and he was invited, and he came, and he had, the best time of his life. He will readily admit that that's one of his favorite events of the year.
And then 2 years later, Falcon drags all their old drift cars out there.
It's like 40
Pollock,
or 50 drifters.
Yeah, with Pollock and seriously like Von 7 Gittin, cars.
Chris Forsberg.
And Forsberg's there now, and it's just something. It's just something you need to take into consideration when it comes to your brand. I know we're talking about exponentially larger,
but it's something you can take away from it.
You can.
You got to look at those guys. Those people are very marketable. They have great sponsorships, and they're not getting them because they're always first on the podium.
Right. Absolutely.
They offer something of much greater value. And that's people who like them and who are interested in what they're doing.
Right. And then back to James's point, they're not just putting stickers on their car.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure the Gum Out partnership has worked out very well with Ryan, but he does a lot of stuff for Gum Out other than just showing up with a red car that says Gum Out on it. So, anyway, kind of got off the beaten path again, but so one of the things that you talked about, James, is you're doing a lot of different types of trades, of value with these different companies. Is that something that organically you determine through the process of talking to people what's going to be the best value to them, or are you writing proposals, or what? How do you come to that determination to what's going to be the best trade in this partnership for both parties?
Yeah, so I don't ever really write a blank proposal and just send it in. That's really not going to be successful. There are some companies out there, just because they get so many requests for support, that they'll have a proposal season where they'll have some time in the year where they'll solicit proposals, and you can submit to those. Typically, those are mostly endemic motorsports companies. But what I do, it's worked for me. I have a marketing deck, so I have a slide deck that basically covers who I am, what I do, what kind of coverage I get, where you can find me, things I do, all about my brand and stuff, and where they can find more information about me, as like an opener to the companies, to send them, say, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what I do, this is about me, kind of thing. And I'll send that along so they can, kind of see who I am and what I do, before I go in depth with the conversation. But the actual partnership and what we do together and what value we exchange, or how we work. Normally, I've talked to them first. I've had a pretty in-depth conversation or a couple of conversations, and then I'll tailor-make a proposal to that company if they're interested, focusing on the topics that they're interested in and how I think I could be a help of them. And I may give, a few options to them of things we could do, and then see which ones they latch onto. Then I'll have a couple more conversations with them, and we might, tailor out and work out a deal. So I wouldn't, just send blind proposals. I think what you really want to do is you want to understand, don't just assume that you know their needs. Ask them questions, learn about their company, learn about what they're trying to do in marketing either this year or in the next few years. Look what they're trying to grow. Are they trying to grow more customers? Are they trying to grow brand identity? Are they trying to, target a different market? Are they trying to, target a different audience? And then see what you can do. It might be helpful starting out to look at all the different assets that you have, and not just your race car and your trailer, but maybe you're really good with photography, like you, Michael. Maybe you can take really good photos, and so you can provide them support for their company's marketing to help them out by taking professional grade photos for their products and their systems to help them in their marketing materials. And in exchange, they can provide certain value to you. So. Or maybe you're really good on web and you know how to build websites, and they're a local company. They don't really want to spend a lot of money on websites, and you can do a value exchange there. Or, maybe you're in that demographic that they're trying to target. That's the kind of different demographic you are. You may be, a younger generation racer. And they're a typically older company, or they're, not really active on social media, and you might be able to provide social media support to them, or, help them in, tailoring their messages for that younger audience to see what will stick. Things like that. There's a lot of things you can do that isn't just, money. Think about what you do, what you're good at. There may be things, in your professional day job that you're good at and may work well with that company. Maybe you know a lot of people in the industry and have a network in an industry that is completely outside of their industry, but you could see how their products could be used in a different industry, and therefore you can, link them with different partners or introduce them to people in your network that you think would be looking for this type of opportunities.
So you've gone through the process of, bringing on new partners. You've come up with proposals. You've agreed to some terms. You're going through the process of providing, the value that you said you're going to provide. At the end of the day, let's say it's the end of 2017, Kanga Motorsports, what do you guys try to provide as far as here's the value add for the year? Are you trying to prove in quantitative terms, here's the value that we actually provided, here's the exposure we provided, or are you approaching that from a kind of a softer perspective? Because I've seen, Alex talks about this in that book. He talks about, you need to put together, basically it's like a follow-up proposal with all this information on, yep, I was on, the TV on these dates, and here's the demographic information from the Nielsen reports, and here's the information about the people that attended the show. And, there's a legitimate amount of work that goes into that side of it. The unfortunate, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but that book is really coming from his perspective, which you said, working for Lucas, where those guys are on a whole different level. So there's something to take away from that, but it'd be interesting to know from your perspective at a grassroots level, what are you following up with your partners with at the end of the year?
So I don't just follow up with my partners at the end of the year. It's a partnership. We're working together. So I will be, in contact with my partners throughout the year and the season. What I do is I update them after every race weekend, what we were doing. If I talk to companies or individuals that may have been interested with their products, if we featured their products, I'll tag them. I'll tag posts of them, possibly on Instagram or Facebook. I will share materials with them, often promotional photos of the car on track with their logos or myself. For instance, I worked with 3M USA this year. They helped me produce a custom suit for myself, which was fantastic. One of the nicest racing suits that I've seen is their quality on what they do with their product. And so, I provided them materials so they can help market that, and then people can see that. But I'm also an advocate for them. So on a race weekend, I'm talking to people. People in the paddock will ask me, I've never heard of these people. Who are they and what do they do? And I'll share some of that information with my partners about, hey, I talked to, several races at the weekend. They were interested in the products. Maybe we can get some samples out and I can hand those out at the next race or something like that. But I'm communicating with our partners after each race event and then throughout the year to check, how can I help you more? Is what I'm doing helping? Is there something coming up that you're going to be releasing where there's a way for us to partner and maybe we can do this together? They may be, releasing a new product and you may be able to help with the launch of that product somehow. Or, they may have an event coming up and you might be able to support or things like that. So to the first part of your question about the quantitative, I will share data with some of our partners if they're looking for it. Some of our partners aren't looking for that level of information. It does take a fair amount of time to pull that data together.
Is that data available through the SCCA? Can you find that?
Yeah, so I've talked to. So there are people within SCCA National that they do a member survey every few years, and you're able to get that data as being part of that membership. There are people that track that kind of marketing stuff at your local tracks. You can, it's always good to know who they are and see if you can help promote their track as well as them. And often if you're trying to help somebody, they're willing to help you and share their data too. Not everyone's going to share their data, of course. It is a business industry. They have to know where that data is going, and you don't really want to share data openly with everybody's competitors. That's not really going to help your partner or yourself.
And some of these outfits are, they're companies too. They want to be paid for the information that they put together.
Yeah, and some of it is of value, and it's worthwhile to pay for some of that information. But at this level, I think we're really looking at autocrosses, amateur road races, things like that. There's things you can do. I track web traffic and Facebook and YouTube traffic with analytics. I understand what stuff is working well, what's not working well. Just you can kind of see what trends are and what type of content you're producing is doing well. And then you can try and share more types of those contents kind of thing. I find a lot of the how-to articles for Spec Racer Fords, for instance, they have a very niche market. There's a small community of Spec Racer Ford racers, but it's valuable to them. Whereas some of the broader content, in SCCA in general, has a lot, greater reach. And it depends on what type of content you're really going after. So if you know your audience and what you're doing, it can be very helpful. And then sharing that data with, your partners, how well it's doing, asking them if there's stuff you can do better to help them or things like that. So I would, it really is business. It really is, a partnership. I don't really look at it as sponsorship, as more as a partnership. We're working together to a common goal or similar goals. And so I like to call and contact and share and work with them. I think some of the worst company experiences is when they do sponsorship and they send some money and then they never hear from you again. When that kind of thing is bad for the industry. It's bad for everybody. No one's happy with that kind of outcome, and can really sour a relationship for the future for other possible partnerships. So I would not recommend doing that, but I would also recommend making sure that you're doing what you said you would do, and also helping them, making sure what you're doing is helping. Ask how you can be providing better value, and you may get feedback.
So, somebody that's listening, we have a lot of people that are in motorsports at a grassroots level, and some people are really serious about it, competitive about it, and some people are doing it at a more local level, and they're doing it for fun. But if somebody's listening to this and they decide that they're motivated to get started into this, what would be some parting advice that you would have for them?
I'd just say, you really have to get out there and try it, but don't just randomly go out there and just try things. Kind of do your research, be systematic about it. Think about what you're trying to accomplish before you get started. One good thing I think for races to start out is trying to, and it can be scary. Don't try and work out how many dollars per minute you're spending. That number can be often scary. But try and work out where you're spending your resources. Either you're spending your time, your money, or your effort, and try and work out, hey, if I could offset these costs, I'd be able to do one more event, or if I could get my oil covered for the year, or I could get a certain amount of dollars covered for the year, I'd be able to do additional events, or I could branch out into a new out of region event or something like that. It kind of gives you targets and goals, and then from there you can work towards those targets and goals about what you want to achieve. You may go after certain industries and companies then, and that might help you learn. There's only so much time and so much effort somebody can put into this, especially if they have a day job. And so, try and tailor that to be the most effective going forward. I don't think just cold calling a whole bunch of people that you don't even understand what the company does is really going to be helpful to you. Put in that little bit of time up front and you're going to get a far greater return. Definitely recommend reading that book we talked about, Motorsports Marketing and Sponsorships. I recommend, reaching out to some other people. There are racers in various different regions, that do have some sort of sponsorship. Talk to them, ask them what they're doing. Some of them will be happy to share. Some of them may not be happy to share. It just depends what they are. In general, most amateur racers are helpful people, and so they're willing to share and do what they can do to help other people starting out. And I would say, just think about what you want to do, and then try and set goals and learn different ways to do that. There are some courses out there that are good. There are also some courses out there that are not good, or there are people out there selling sponsorship things to make money so that they can make money, not to help people get sponsorships. And then there are people out there that are really helping people, that are really interested in the industry and they want to help. And so sometimes it's hard to know who those people are, but in general, you can kind of work that out. If people want to contact me, I'd be happy to chat to them, tell them what I do, and have conversations as well. I don't know, lots of different ways to get started. It's just depending on what you want to do and how you want to take it.
Yeah, it's funny, when we were leading up to this, I said, don't give away more information than you feel like you need to, and you responded with, there's nothing really that's a secret. It's more that people need to put in the work. They need to put in the actual effort.
Yeah.
And that's before and after, contracts are signed or goods are exchanged or, whatever. It's a job. It's a side job, it's a small business. It's time and effort, and it continues all the way through. So that's a important piece of it, I think, to understand.
Yeah, it's not, most of the work isn't the first work getting the contract. Most of the work is the work afterwards on what you're going to deliver, how you're going to do that partnership, what you're doing throughout the year. That's the majority of the work. So if you think the work up front is a lot of work, you're probably in for a big surprise going forward.
Absolutely. Did you guys have any questions for James?
No, you covered literally
I tried to cover
everything.
as much as I could.
I feel like this is a topic that we could
We
go
could keep-
on and
yeah.
on and on about.
We could keep going.
But
I'm trying not to.
You've been ranting and raving about that book. I
just think it's
think
important.
that's where people need to start if they're real serious about it.
I think it's important for people to understand some of the concepts of the book. If they really want to do this, if they really are, okay, I'm serious about racing, I'm going to do it, and I want to bring on partners, I think if that's your goal, order the book, read it, then decide, okay, I still want to be in motorsports and I still want to be, I still want to bring people on. Okay, now go do it.
Right. And those strategies aren't just for motorsports. I mean, that's pretty broad.
Yeah,
like even just reading it, thinking it from like the stuff that I've done, like even if I was just like, teenage me wishing I could be a pro skater, just things like that. If I would have known that when I was 14, just those general concepts like, I'm 50 pages into the book already. I'm just like, these are, this makes so much sense. If I would just follow this type of stuff, we could go further.
Right. The difficulty is, none of us are in motorsports marketing professionally. We don't go to work at X agency and provide motorsports marketing, for whomever, for we don't do TV buys. We don't work with Monster Energy. We don't, so we don't get that experience. And then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you need to do this." You're like, "Oh, duh, no wonder. That's so stupid," but you just don't deal with it.
It's obvious once they
Right.
tell you.
You just don't deal with it day to day. And so I tried to extrapolate as much out of the book, in the conversation, but I guess I will also open it up if you want to go to the group or just message us or email us or whatever. If there's something else on this topic that you want to discuss, let us know and we'll try to readdress it at some point, especially if we get enough feedback that people were like, "Oh, I didn't understand this," or you touched on this, but you didn't really dive into it. Because, again, the book, how long is the book? A couple hundred pages.
Yeah.
And then, we could sit here and talk about this for days, and really dive into some different topics. But if people are really interested in it, let us know. We'll do a 2.0 class, a 200 level class, a 200 level class on it.
I've had about enough classes.
Yeah, I know you have.
Before
Yeah,
we
maybe
roll
we
in,
can, if people want to tag me and ask some questions, I'll be happy to expand on things.
James is in our group for those of you who are there. So, you said people could contact you if they wanted to. Where's the best way to do that?
So, KangaMotorsports.com is probably the easiest way to reach me. You can also find me Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's at Kanga Motorsports. And then, or you could email me, KangaMotorsports@gmail.com or James@KangaMotorsports.com works too. On my page is an easy way to contact me any way you want to, basically. And then we go from there. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. I'm still learning all of this as I go, but just try and understand the industry and learn some of the terms and learn what people are looking for is their starting part to it. And I think that book helps. It's not going to tell you exactly what to do, but it's going to give you a broad overview of, how the industry works, what it works like, and give you some insights, which is, that really sets the tone. And then from there, how you approach it, it may be different for different individuals. So,
Absolutely. James, you're going to stick around and do some news with us, correct?
yes.
Awesome. Well, let's do the news presented by our partner, Petrolbox.
All right, we'll fire this off with future Dodge Chargers and Challengers, maybe based on Maseratis moving forward.
How do you feel about this, Michael?
Well, it won't be based on a 20-year-old E-Class Mercedes anymore, so I suppose that's probably good.
Probably a good idea.
Makes me very interested in a Charger more so than I am now, possibly.
So I guess this also means that they're not selling Maserati. If they were to go this route.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of news about how they're going to collaborate Maserati and Alfa Romeo with other brands within FCA. It might just be some, drug-induced Sergio nonsense just kind of swirling around. We should mix this with this and do this. But, at the same time, that Charger platform, at least originally, I don't know about the current model, was based on the E-Class Mercedes, and the reason that it was based on the E-Class Mercedes is because at the time they were owned by Daimler. So,
yeah.
what do you do? Do you develop?
A lot's changed.
No, I don't think it really has. I think it's basically the same.
But I think underneath it's basically the same.
Yeah. So what do? Do you build a new platform that is only for Dodge 300?
That's not the way of the automotive world anymore.
Or do you use a platform that you have?
Well, aren't the Chargers themselves built on another platform right now?
I think they're still built on the old 300.
Yeah,
I think all that stuff comes back from the old. Sorry,
E-Class.
not the old 300, the old E-Class Mercedes.
The old 300s, the Chargers, are the Challengers too?
I think it's all the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the base of it, I think the chassis base is, and then they change things, of course, to suit the cars. But yeah,
I'm sure it's changed a lot since then. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. I'd be interested to see if we'll get some different engines. I would assume that we probably would.
My question is then, well, who is getting the different engine? Is Maserati getting the different engine, or is Dodge getting the different engine?
Well, I think they're all probably going to come from somewhere in the company. Depends on where, right? I mean, it's kind of like Ford with their, global platform. They kind of Ford, had all these different chassis platforms across the world, and then they kind of merged them all together.
Yeah, it's far too complicated.
Yeah,
as manufacturing is concerned.
Oh yeah, if you're designing, 20 different chassis on a 5-year cycle versus 10 different chassis, it's going to be easier.
Right.
The other part of this, they said that the Journey, which is garbage.
Yeah,
That was terrible.
They say that that's going to be based on the Maserati Alfa Romeo SUV platform, and it may go to a more sports-based SUV, which sounds interesting. I'm intrigued by, because again, I want to reiterate that the Journey is garbage. And I'm honestly surprised they're not killing it off. But
even an Alfa Romeo chassis would be better, right?
Anything would be better for the Journey. I actually haven't seen a Journey in a long time. Maybe it's because it's just blending in with the background.
Yeah, I think you just don't notice it.
It's one of those cars that you buy probably because it's the cheapest.
It's just there.
It's just
I need
there.
a car, and that one's
I need
there.
a car, and this one's the cheapest. I need an SUV crossover thing, and this one is the best price, so this is the one I will buy.
I live closest to the Dodge dealership, and I'm lazy.
I can see it. It's easy to get it serviced because I can walk home afterwards.
My uncle's friend is a salesman, something like that.
We sold 300 to Avis this week.
Yeah.
So that would be, I think, a big step in the right direction for Dodge and the Journey.
Or just
drop
it.
I like the Maserati stylings. I mean, I can't imagine if they go to that platform, they'd probably have a complete style change, probably for the better.
True.
Yeah, it may be a facelift thing, but the underpinnings might be similar kind of thing. I don't think they're going to make a Charger look like a Maserati anyway.
No.
The Charger and Challenger chassis has never been known as a handling machine. So
it's a burnout machine, though.
But hopefully that could help.
Might help.
I feel like you can do burnouts in cars that turn corners as well.
Not according to the internet. Not according to
one or the other.
Not according to the marketing provided by Roadkill.
Like you can turn corners and do burnouts, but you can't necessarily turn corners in a car that does burnouts. Those aren't necessarily one and the same.
I know. And the new thing is that all cars have to be able to do everything except for the Demon.
Yeah. Which maybe I'm not for. Maybe I kind of like the fact that it's just really bad at a lot of things and really good at one thing.
And it works. People love it.
People do love it.
I see them everywhere. Even though they seem to not be able to make any money on them.
I don't know. It's Sergio again. I'm not in control of FCA. Anyway, I think that's it for that one, isn't it, Robbie?
That's all I got.
Let's do the next one.
The FIA now allows me to get my Formula One Super license way easier.
Really, Robbie? You going to go to the NASCAR route?
No. I should probably start by racing. I could start with some spec racing and then maybe get into
work your way up. So how does this work if I want to compete in F1 theoretically?
So they've restructured it. I mean, there's a lot of different paths you can go. I mean, I didn't realize how close IndyCar was to making it so you could just transfer over. Because for example, if you win IndyCar for the season, you get 40 points, and that automatically gets you a super license.
You need 40 points for a super license?
You need 40 points over the course of 3 years. So Formula 2, the top 3 drivers get one every... Like, if you get first, second, or third, you get 40 points that season. So Formula 2 obviously would be the fastest way there, if you could get your way up there. Or GP2 would be another great class for that. But it jumps all the way down to, like, let's see, NASCAR. If you win a NASCAR series, you get 15 points.
What I found very interesting about this is, in theory, if you could podium 3 years in a row for the championship for NASCAR, you could switch to Formula One.
You'd have to...
You'd have to podium.
You'd have to get...
No, you'd have to get first,
and, like, third.
Yeah.
That'd get you your 40.
You could...
how fun
that just
would
gets
that
you a
be?
license, though, and then you have to do tests and things like
Yeah,
that before I think they'll let you.
that's apples and
It just
oranges.
gives you eligibility for their super license, and then I think you still have to do the tests.
Somebody's got to pick you up, too, I suppose. The team's got to pick you up.
Yeah, so again, it would make more sense to be in a Formula team. So like Formula E, which is way up there. Winning Formula E would give you 30 points per season rather than 15 in NASCAR.
NASCAR's new for this, though, right? They just added
NASCAR is
that.
one of the 3 that I think they added.
LMP they added as well, didn't they? Or did they
that
take
was
some points away or something? They changed something with that class, I believe.
Yeah, I think they restructured the points.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, there were a
that
few
added.
races that or
They
race
actually
series
took
that lost points.
away.
But I'll say something unpopular, or maybe not unpopular, but like, shouldn't you be eligible for your super license from being good at NASCAR?
No. Apples and oranges.
I think that they're two very different types of racing.
You know, LMP I could kind of understand. All the formula racing I could
Yep.
definitely understand. You actually
And
get points in karting.
Yeah. I mean,
A small
it's not,
amount of
I don't
points,
think it's
yeah.
really possible. But like, you'd have to do a year of karting, win,
And then kill it in formula.
and then jump up to another class.
Yeah.
So you get some points from the karting and then more points from the actual other races.
But
Yeah, I mean, some drivers do go from karting to Formula lower class, Formula upper class, and then eligible license, and then they do tests. You
I
know?
don't think
Yep.
there's a single Formula One driver that didn't start in karting at this point.
back to my point,
NASCAR and Formula One are two very, very different styles of racing.
Which
Yeah,
is
there are some drivers though that can jump between. You know, that
Oh, and
doesn't
that's
bother
been
them.
proven.
Yeah,
yeah. And I think that's why IndyCar is more on, like the number 3 on the list, whereas NASCAR is at least halfway down.
But like Juan Pablo Montoya, this is going off of memory, which is not usually good for me, but I think he did well in one and not the other, even though he was in both Formula One
Oh.
and NASCAR.
Yeah, he's done well in Formula One, Indy, and NASCAR. You know,
Did
he's one of
he-
those drivers that can do pretty
Did
good
he
in
do
most
real
of the
well
series.
in NASCAR? For some reason, I had it in my head that he never like managed to win a race or something like that. But I don't know.
I don't know that he's done exceptional in NASCAR. But he is. I mean, he has been in NASCAR now for a number of years. So,
Right
and he continues to
now he's
compete. So
driving Bugattis. So
he just does whatever he wants, which is fine. But yeah, I find this odd. This news that you can use points from NASCAR towards your super license. You know, the realistic aspect of it is you probably wouldn't. You would probably maybe you could do NASCAR, and if you podium, then you could go to IndyCar. Realistically, I just don't see an avenue where somebody takes points that they earned in NASCAR over to any other race series and then eventually gets into their super license using those points.
I think what this shows the most is that Formula One is now ran and operated and somewhat owned by an American company, and they're trying to make Formula One more interesting to Americans, so they're giving NASCAR drivers an opportunity to step into Formula One.
And I would imagine, since it has literally like every other major racing series on here besides NASCAR, that I could see why they would want to say, well,
Add NASCAR.
everything else is in here, including karting. Maybe a professional NASCAR driver could transition.
It's always been European, and this is one way to maybe help push some American drivers into the series, try and get some of us to give a flying fuck about it.
I mean,
That's fair.
I mean, really, you can get, if you win Formula Mazda, you get 10 points. You only get 15 for winning NASCAR. So, I mean,
That's fair. Yeah.
I think that their point scale is actually, it makes a lot of sense.
Somewhat accurate.
I would not disagree with any of these.
That's fair. But again, I really don't think that there are enough points in the NASCAR super license, whatever, to actually make somebody transfer from NASCAR to Formula One is my point.
No, I think if you're doing well enough that you could actually earn those 40 points in 3 years, you're going to stay in NASCAR.
Oh,
there's no way you're going
making
to
bank there.
I would not leave NASCAR if I had 3 podium finishes on the championship.
You're making bank.
I would stay in NASCAR.
You're doing fine.
I don't know. If you get the opportunity to go do Formula One, you don't think people are going to take it?
Some people don't want that, though.
No, I do. I would go full Ricky Bobby my entire life. I'd buy the house.
Wearing Wonder Bread shit
Wonder
everywhere
Bread.
I go.
I'd have stickers on my windshield.
Get that blonde
doing weird,
trophy wife. the
weird
whole nine
interviews. The whole baby Jesus thing. That would be me for sure. There's no way I would leave NASCAR.
What about you, Robbie? You go to Formula One?
Oh, yeah. To me, that'd be the ultimate goal.
The thing is, though, it'd just be me trolling Robbie on Insta. Like if I was the points leader in NASCAR,
Could you imagine?
it'd just be me fucking with Robbie all day on social media.
In a parallel universe, Michael's the NASCAR champion, and I'm in Formula One in like last place, and he keeps sending me things going, "Hey, how's it going over there?"
That's a parallel universe I want to be
I know.
part of so bad.
It'd just be me making Tom Cruise jokes and
I think you guys should make those fake Twitter accounts and see how it goes.
I am not against this
Sounds
at all.
like a YouTube video series.
yeah. If somebody wants to put some money into that, let me know because
I'm all for it.
it would probably be pretty funny.
Some like sketch comedy thing. I don't know.
Anyway, was that it, Robbie?
That's all I got.
Okay. Basically, the outcome of that is in a parallel universe, we would fuck with each other on social media. That's all that was.
Maybe we should do
It's
more.
not a
We
parallel
should
universe.
do that in
It's
the
what-
current universe.
It's what we do now, but it's
Hold
to
up.
larger
a smaller group. Yeah, it's not multi-millions of people. We'll get there someday.
Yeah,
we're working
if
on
only.
it. We're working on it. What's next?
Yamaha introduces a rad R1 powered spec dirt racing car.
I want anything that is a cart
Yep,
with an R1 motor in it.
it's
Does
awesome.
this thing not look sweet?
It does look sweet.
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Are they planning on doing like a race series out of this, like sprint car?
Yeah, I think it's supposed
Like
to be.
a complete.
It's supposed to be a spec series, just like
like
Spec
a
Racer Ford is, except on dirt.
like a like a stepping stone, just like
I'm sure that's the idea.
it's
Yeah,
like Formula 3 versus. World
It's
Outlaws or whatever, I
relatively
don't know.
cheap. With my air quotes again this week, it's it's cheaper than going to. It's not Carl. Who's Carl on? It doesn't matter. It's cheaper than going to your chassis builder and saying I need a chassis and I need a spec engine and I need in the full blown sprint car.
Right.
It's going to be about $15,000. It sounded like they didn't release a price, but
I think that's very reasonable.
it's way cheap. It's cheaper than a Razor. Razors
Yeah.
are like $25,000. That's
Yeah,
with no
they're
mods.
stupid.
No mods on
Too
them.
much.
We had a long discussion about this because my dad got a used one for his house in the hills,
Yeah.
and
Is this Veer How to State
Veer How to
Mark II?
State?
No, it'd be Mark 1.
Version 2.0.
No, that's the
This-
first
no,
one. His
this
is 2.0.
His is in
Oh,
the Black
okay.
Hills.
My bad.
But it's funny because he bought a Razor off a guy that literally lived 2 houses down and just happened to be living also back where they live full time. But yeah, they were talking
What was
about,
There's a
what's the
joke
price they're quoting on this?
They didn't quote a
They didn't
price,
quote a
but
price.
he was saying he alluded to a price around 15,000. So it could
That's a bargain.
it could be
Right?
it could be I don't know, it could be $20,000, it could be $12,000, I don't know, somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's super cheap, though, isn't it?
Yeah, with some gear and some tires, you're probably like racing for $25,000 easily.
Especially since, like, a lot of times dirt track entry fees are pennies compared to what it costs to, show up for a race weekend with the SCCA.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking, $100 versus $500-$600.
Right.
So this is a good market then
I mean,
for
if you
them
just
to
want to
exploit.
get some seat time, and like especially around here, there's how many tracks around here doing dirt track stuff versus a 2.5 hour drive to get to the closest road course.
Every freaking county has at least one dirt oval in it.
Yeah.
In Iowa. I mean, literally, you can go to, and the thing is, the stands are packed.
Yeah,
You want to talk about motorsports marketing exposure?
yeah,
Dirt racing.
yeah.
In the middle of the country. It's crazy.
And apparently, we're not even the Mecca. Apparently, that's the South.
It's bigger there.
I guess.
But we got the Nationals here.
We got Boone here. Yeah.
We have both nationals. We have sprint
Knoxville.
cars and mods.
True.
Knoxville's got a museum and shit.
It's not my deal, but man, it is popular. You talk about motorsport that's
I get
popular.
it.
It is dirt track racing.
We should do more of that.
But that
We
thing,
just keep saying that, and
that
we
thing
don't
looks
do it.
like it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, it'd be a blast.
Like I feel like I just want to own one.
I could have $12,000 worth of fun in that.
I don't even necessarily
10,000,
need to
whatever.
go racing with it. Just I think it'd be cool to have and like do dune buggy.
I was
thing.
gonna
No,
buy
I said that
something.
it
I
said
don't know.
he did say you can't jump it. He did say flat out you can't
Not
jump
with that
it.
attitude.
It's
Can we
made
drive
for
it around
driving in
Robbie's
circles.
estate?
Oh yeah, totally.
Depends on how flat his estate is. I'm not really sure.
It's not flat.
Can we build a track? Is that inside of the HOA?
Can we put?
Well, there's nothing in the HOA that says I can't.
There's Robbie's
Specifically-
rule.
Was specific.
Robbie's rule, yeah.
Can we put? Those treaded tires on it and then try to drive it across the Minnesota lake?
Oh, yeah.
Are you sure?
No, I don't want to sink it.
No,
The DNR gets involved.
Let's do a
and
gambler with it.
just take it drifting. Take it to O Drift.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Just
I
wrap
don't
it
think it's
out
got
at like
the angle on
12,000
the front,
RPMs.
maybe.
Wah!
We know some people that are good fabricators.
Yeah.
We could.
James has got a point. It probably has like mad angle up front.
No, he said it has no angle. I bet we could. We could find somebody that
we
can
could
add
give it
some angle.
angle.
Yeah, we could just extend those lower control arms and then.
Actually, if it's dirt track, it probably does have a fair amount of angle.
Yeah,
though.
I was going
It's
to
meant-
say.
it's meant to
they're
drift.
literally like. Yeah.
I think Adam's right.
Yeah, I think that they've had a ton of angle. I bet.
Spec drift. Not sure
Yeah.
why, but
And
spec
it's got
drift.
a motorcycle, a
Get
leader
tons of
bike
revs.
motor in it, which is
Revs
one of the
out to
things we always
15
talk
grand.
about. This is cool.
I'm on board.
And did you see where it was debuted?
Yeah, wasn't it here?
It was at the museum in Lincoln that we
Yeah.
went to. The Museum of
American Speed.
American Museum of Speed.
Yeah, and we didn't get our press invite, which is insulting.
Yeah, what the heck?
It probably came to our email and we totally missed it since we're on those mailing lists.
Trying to work on getting on a few more of those actually.
More mailing lists.
Good.
When literally FCA sent us an email today to say that they went to the Texas State Fair or something. I was like, okay, this is not helpful information.
I've been
That's the
looking
problem
at,
with that.
like-
You have to comb through it to find something that's
Yeah.
that's newsworthy. And unfortunately, by the time we get to it, Jalopnik's written something that's not entirely accurate about it.
Oh, speaking of Jalopnik
And not accurate.
and not accurate, Volkswagen has developed a new variable compression and variable cam profile engine that Jalopnik just does not understand.
So I'm not sure how I want to start this exactly. I was personally offended by this article because so here's the deal. So Volkswagen has developed this thing that they're calling I'll call it the B cycle engine. It's just all it has to do with is when the intake valve is open in relation to when the compression stroke occurs with the cylinder. That's all I'll say for now. We'll explain that more later. If you go read the article by, is it David Tracy?
Yes.
Let's put a name on it. He says,
there we go.
He starts out saying, he goes on this whole rant about how if you're reading this article, you already understand the Miller cycle, and I shouldn't have to explain it to you.
But here I am.
But his condescending tone comes off as, but if you're a moron and you're not in the know like all the rest of us, I'll explain the Miller cycle to you. He then proceeds to explain the Atkins cycle, which we'll go through all these at the end. The first comment is, no, you missed my question. Okay, so if you're a journalist and this is your job, this is all you do, why would you write an article about something that is technical that nobody understands and then come in real hot with that condescending tone about how I know so much more about cars than you do and just insult all of your readers when you know people that read Jalopnik are engineers?
There's a lot of people that know what they're talking about.
There are a
That's
lot of
like
engineers.
literally what Jalopnik is built around is like the super nerds of the super nerds for car people.
It was such an affront to journalism in general that I was insulted. I was like, you've insulted your readers. You were completely condescending to them, and then you were wrong about the thing that you were condescending about. I was like, this is this shit that drives me nuts about automotive journalism. It's just trash. It's all trash. All of it's bad. I mean, I mean, it's not all bad, but 80%
Yeah, that
of it's
first comment's not bad. I mean, the first comment was pretty much on point.
Yeah,
so.
he needs to be writing these articles.
Yeah, he should be the one that writing technical articles. Do you want to explain the cycles? Do you want me to
Please.
explain the
You can
cycles?
explain all the other
Okay,
cycles.
so the auto cycle, I think that's how you pronounce that.
Auto, OTTO.
OTTO. It would be, let's call it a normal compression cycle. So basically your intake valve closes. So your intake valve is letting in your air-fuel mixture. The valve closes. The piston starts its compression cycle. It
Yep.
compresses the air-fuel mixture. There's a spark. That's the auto cycle. The Atkins cycle is the same except for the intake valve stays open longer. And so what happens is that compression stroke starts, then the valve closes. So what I think the guy's name actually was Atkins. What he
Yes.
discovered was this was more efficient in different ways. This is more efficient, I think, from a fuel economy perspective, or
Yeah, it lowers your compression ratio.
Effectively lowers your
it
compression ratio.
Also, as a result, means that you have a larger expansion ratio compared to it.
Right.
So that it's basically making the engine smaller, so that it's using a smaller. It's more efficient by burning less fuel.
right. We screwed anything up yet, James?
No, I'm sure.
You're an engineer.
I'm probably sure. I don't.
Okay. So the next
He
next
does
one
rocket things.
the next one is the Miller cycle. So the Miller cycle specifically has to do with supercharging. So you take an Atkins cycle and you supercharge it. That's all you do.
Ah,
That's it. There's no other magic to it. You just add a supercharger to it, and
So he was kind of right.
he was kind of right, and it would have been passable if he wasn't a dick about it.
Right.
Since he came in hot with "you all are morons," let me drop some knowledge, and then he dropped the
let
wrong
me learn
knowledge.
ya.
Let me learn you, and then he learned us wrong, and that's where. And the really funny thing is he made a link to Engineering Explained. Guy's a brilliant guy.
That guy's spot on.
He was
I
spot on in
really
the video
like-
too. That's the thing. It's like, did you
I really
watch?
like his videos.
Did you watch the video at all?
No, he did not.
explained it, and he didn't even use the term Miller cycle at all in the video.
he kind of like copied and pasted a lot from the Engineering Explained video, which would have saved him if he would have just completely copied and pasted it.
Yeah,
But he kind of was like, "Oh, I'll change a few words," and then
he
turns out he kind of changes the definition.
changed some
and then he gets real
engineering terms.
condescending.
Yep. And then the last one, the B cycle, which was developed by VW, is essentially the same thing, but the intake valve closes before the piston reaches bottom dead center. So it closes prematurely.
There's a lot of arguments on whether or not that's good or bad.
I was thinking about it, and I cannot decide.
I'm still not, like, even from an engineering standpoint, I can see both sides of the argument, because if it closes before it reaches bottom dead center, it's going to create a suction or a vacuum, because it's going to be closed and it's going to be pulling down. And then when it goes back up, supposedly that vacuum would basically spring it back. So,
Apply more force.
all right, so then it's not energy lost.
My thought was, okay, so now if you're creating a value, now you're losing energy because you're slowing the piston in theory.
Yeah.
So, but then you also have a vacuum then, so when the piston has to reach its bottom dead center and then changes direction, there's less resistance there.
I would think you'd have a power loss because
You do.
that downward stroke is what's creating the power. And if you're taking some of that away,
Not on
that one, that's the
not on
intake
that
stroke.
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm on the wrong stroke. You're right.
James, what's your engineering opinion of this?
Well, for those people that didn't think you guys did an automotive podcast anymore, there you go. I think the thing with the article was the condescending tone, and then being wrong about the condescending tone. That was the goal. But I've looked at the cycles or whatever, and I can, like Robbie, I can see both sides of the argument. I think you'd have to do testing to really see which one is better and more efficient, and it may be different depending on the bore and the stroke size. It might be the valve to the bore stroke ratios may be different. If you have really small valves, it might be better versus larger valves, kind of thing.
The other thing on that engine specifically is it's turbocharged.
Yep.
So you already have positive pressure in the cylinder when the intake valve closes. So you probably, is there really much energy loss? You're not pulling a vacuum, is my point.
Oh yeah, you mean you're normalizing the pressure rather? It's not going to a vacuum. It's just lowering the pressure.
Yeah, you're lowering the cylinder pressure while that valve is closed, and then as the piston then changes direction, then you're increasing that pressure again, but it's going to be higher than atmospheric pressure You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah, you're also using the valves to modify the compression ratio based on the charge coming in, so
Correct.
you can control it a little bit better so you avoid detonation, really.
And that was the other part of this engine too, is that it's got the cam is variable, so it can change when the valves are open and closed based on the position of the cam. It actually moves, longitudinally, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yep.
Yes.
So the cam moves, and it has different lobes and different height and different sized lobes, so that intake valve opening and closing can happen at different times.
Yep. So like if you're getting on it, putting your foot to the floor, it switches over to what would be just a normal, like would it be an auto cycle?
Yeah, or maybe even an Atkins cycle. Yeah.
Yep. And then when you have like basically no load, just cruising on the interstate, it would drop down to this Budak cycle.
Budak cycle.
Budak cycle. What? It's too close to Bugaki. But I'm sorry, I couldn't read this and not think. Really? Really?
It's the Manji cycle, bro.
But it's almost like a backwards VTEC.
Yeah, in some ways
really.
it is.
So instead of getting on it and then having it give you more power, if you don't get on it, it gives you basically no power or less power. And then also, I still think the guy from the engineering explained and Jalopnik got it wrong. That according to the Automotive Society or Society of Automotive Engineers, their article on this engine said that the B cycle intake. Oh God damn it!
He lost it. Hold on a second.
It brings not only a more brief valve opening, but also a smaller opening. So it doesn't just close it. So it just doesn't open it as far.
If it's open less, you have less intake charge versus the Atkins or the Miller cycle, where it's open through the whole intake stroke. So if you close it during its intake stroke early, now you've lost charge.
Yeah. So when they were explaining it, and even in their diagram, they showed it. They showed that it opened the same length as it did on every other cycle. But that's not the case. It actually opens opens halfway just for an arbitrary distance. So it opens halfway, which is it closes faster.
It's not just the distance, but the duration. Your
Yes.
duration is shorter.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can get into when you're speccing a cam for an engine, duration is something you have to take into consideration because that's going to affect how much air and fuel is in the cylinder before you compress it. So if you're effectively just shortening the duration of the intake valve opening.
Yes.
Extremely.
This is something that would really benefit from that free valve setup.
Yeah, Koenigsegg's free valve was what I was just thinking too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because trying to get cam lobes and all that stuff dialed in would be a nightmare.
So
on
much more
something
work.
like this.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're all independently controlled, it'd be much easier.
This sounds also like a reliability nightmare. Like
Whatever, you guys are
it's
just
a,
going to
it's a
LS swap it
Volkswagen,
anyway.
so
Yeah, so-
obviously it's a
Yeah, I'll
reliability.
say, what's this
nightmare.
engine going to run like in 40,000 miles? Is it going to be running at 40,000 miles? Is it a rotary? Are we going to have 10 of them in line?
Exactly. Are we just going to have to throw it away and put an LS
There
in
you go,
it?
James.
There
Are
it
you
is.
happy now?
Tee it up. And the problem is some of the drifters actually use rotaries.
Well, that's because they're beating the snot out of them, and apparently
That's how they
when
work.
they work well.
It's true.
Yeah, you want the brap.
You just live on the red line of a rotary motor, and it'll last forever. But you put around in town like a grandpa, and you're done.
Here's the other thing. They work on them and they own them.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
That's a whole other aspect of rotaries
I think that
most people don't
it's
understand.
one of those deals, kind of like old Saabs. If you see somebody who has a RX-7 with a rotary in it, it didn't happen by accident. Just like if you see an old Saab still driving down the road, that guy loves that car. It didn't happen by accident.
He made a choice.
Right. He has made that decision, and he is sticking with it.
Or old Saab's bad. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Nightmare.
They're not reliable, and now it's very hard to get parts for them and stuff like that. So like if you own an old Saab, that's a labor of love. No one owns those by accident anymore.
I get it. I do. I have a
Right.
Fiat.
Yeah,
I'm with you. No, I understand. I really
Yeah,
do understand.
exactly.
But sometimes the brap's just worth that.
Some
I love the
people
sound.
like the brap.
Yeah.
I don't really like the brap. It
The
sounds
flames out the exhaust and the brap.
the flames.
What's that?
The flames out
Notice-
the exhaust. I can be with.
Notice the Australian is sticking up for the rotary engine because
what's that about?
they seem to love those dang things down there.
We do. We love them a lot.
My computer is telling us that we've lasted
Yeah.
way too long.
This podcast is over 2 hours, and Robbie's computer is literally dying. Is that what that says?
Yeah, it says battery is extremely
Battery's
low.
extremely low.
Okay, so we gotta end this. So make sure, guys, to use our promo code for Petrolbox. It's mypetrolbox.com. The promo code is 10tenths with an S on the end. TENTENTHS. We finally opened our box. All three of us got one. We opened it. We did an opening video, which you can find on YouTube. But very surprised by the value that's provided.
Lots of cool stuff.
Lots of cool stuff. We had 2 different tools in ours. We had a Hoonigan shirt. We had some magnets. We had a discount code for Rock Auto, which is also very useful because I know a lot of people use Rock Auto. Really, it was a cool setup. We had some Adams Polishes products. Did I miss something, or did I get everything?
I think you got everything.
Sizing tool. We had the wire cutters.
I used the wire cutters. They're awesome.
The wire cutters are actually very nice. I've got them right here because I
They're great.
opened them. It's really a great value. I mean, I honestly mean that, especially after getting a chance to get our hands on one.
I'm a tool snob, and especially a wire cutter snob or wire stripper snob. Those are great.
So check out their website mypetrolbox.com. Go through the process to select your shirt size, your glove size, and then when you get to checkout, plug in 10 tenths with an S on the end. You get $7 off your first box, which makes it an even greater value, and you will be entered to win a set of Rotiform cast wheels. It's just that simple. Get that golden ticket. That Willy Wonka. You're playing on that. You're well, you especially with your kid. I'm sure that's kind of
He's a little young for Willy Wonka.
but I'm sure it still reignited your
I know,
the
I
things
just-
that
I
you
think it's
enjoyed when you
cool.
were a kid.
Yeah, it's cool.
The things you found joy in when you were a kid. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's kind of
Yeah.
rehashed all that.
Yeah.
James, can't thank you enough. Wonderful information. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun. If there's any follow-on questions or things on the group, I'll be sure to check in and answer as best as I can.
Yep, and if you guys have any follow-up stuff that you would want to hear more about in relation to that topic, post it on the group, send us an email, 10tenspodcast.com, or go to any of our social media pages and send us a message or whatever. We'll try to, if stuff legitimately comes in, we'll try to collect it and then think about doing a follow-up. But I'm sure we'll talk to you next season anyway, James.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's always fun.
It's always an experience.
yeah, that too.
All right, we'll let everybody go. We'll see you guys next week.